Hello, listeners. Welcome back to Shooting Rabbits in a Barrel, a podcast brought to you by Scarecrow Consultants. I'm joined again. Our most popular guest, Jon Holt, is here with us again to share more tales of mischief and lessons learned from careers in systems engineering. How are you doing, Jon?
I'm very good, thanks, Jess. Jess, you look a bit piracy. You look like you're from the musical Anything Goes.
Oh, yeah, it is, yeah. That's what I would be doing if I wasn't being a systems engineer. I'd obviously be tap dancing in the West End. With the jazz hands, yeah, absolutely. So, you know the drill. 2 questions, maybe some more if I'm feeling inspired by your story. So, first question, what story would you like to share with us today?
Well, I'm calling this story A Date with Density, okay? And the density in question being me, obviously. And I will warn both you, Jess, and the readers that this does involve aspects of my love life, okay? Not in a saucy way, but it does involve aspects of my personal life. So I'll warn you now, but nothing too near the knuckle.
Nothing too popular Regency series on Netflix like. That's fine, we can handle that. No. Yeah.
So I found myself in my sort of mid-50s, back on the dating scene, as it were. And the main part of this story involves a date that didn't quite go the way I thought it was going to end up. Okay, and I've been on lots of dates that, you just walk in and just go, this will never ever work, but you go through the. So, for example, this isn't the main story, but I was dating this really lovely lady from Czechia. Okay. And we went out and we had a really nice time. We had lunch. But when you go on first dates, for people who haven't done this for many years, you find yourself asking very artificial questions. And she said, well, what's the best place you've ever been to? And I obviously said Tenby. And I said, what's the best place you've ever been to? And she said, Vienna. And I thought, I said, where? She said, Vienna. And I said, that means nothing to me. Yeah, good work. And I was just waiting for the laugh. And she went, really, it's a big city in Austria. I'm surprised you've never heard of it, a man with your experience and worldly knowledge. And so I spent the rest of the day basically explaining to her, I have heard of Vienna. I didn't know it was in Austria. I was referencing a song from 40 years ago. And she just went, I've only lived in the UK for 12 years. Of course I haven't heard of Ultravox of the song Vienna. So, and from that moment on, when she didn't laugh at that joke, which I thought was good work, I thought I could never love you. So that's just a sample of the way that I didn't say that to her. Obviously, we went back to the car, but I locked her in my camper van and made her listen to the album The Best of Ultravox for the next 45 minutes. But anyway, that's not the story. So that's just an indication of the sort of things I've been putting myself through over the last year or so. So the main story takes place. It was on the weekend of the summer solstice. I'm not sure if it was the actual summer solstice. I know when it was because it was Glastonbury was on that night, and it was in 2022. It was when Paul McCartney was headlining. Okay, I wasn't at Glastonbury, but I just remember it from that iconic sort of gig that he did. So because I wasn't at Glastonbury, I live in Swansea in South Wales. I was at the Swansea Jazz Festival, which takes place over a number of venues, over the marina and the waterfront and various pubs and bars in town. And it's great because you can just go and kind of walk around and take in a bit of jazz and this kind of thing. So I was I'll change the names of the people to protect the innocent, okay? So I've been invited out by one of my oldest friends, my dear friend. We'll call her Crazy Anna for now, okay? And she's always good value. We always have a wonderful time going out. And she said, do you want to come to a jazz festival? Brilliant. I'll meet you down there at 4 in the afternoon. She's always late, so I've sat there drinking till 5 and she finally turned up. And she turned up, a friend of hers, okay? We'll call her Angela, okay? Oh, sexy Ange. It should come to be known later in the story. So we know this Angela turned up, and I vaguely knew her, and so we got chatting. And it turned out that one of her kids was at the same school as my eldest child, who at this point was in his 30s. He's even older now, obviously. So there was this vague, we kind of knew each other, and it was me and Angie and Crazy Anna and a couple of other people. And we sat and we saw some jazz and we drank some wine and we had some drink and we went. And the evening, it was a beautiful, beautiful summer's afternoon. So by about 7 o'clock it started to cool down, and we said we'll go on and we'll go to another bar and see some more jazz. And we're going around, and pretty quickly some of the other people fell off. And it was just me, Crazy Anna, and Sexy Andrews there. And we got on very, very well. And we had drinks, and we danced, and I sang to her. She still spoke to me after that.
Wow.
I sang to her, and, you know, they were playing Elvis in one bar, so I was serenading her. And we gazed into each other's eyes, and we spoke words of love. And it was one of those magical, magical moments. And you just think, wow, this is like straight out of a film or something. And so it got to about 9 o'clock, and we'd been drinking quite a lot since 4 or 5 o'clock. So we said, we should probably go and have some food. So, and she said, oh, great, yeah, let's go have some food. It'd be lovely to go for a meal with you, John. I said, yeah. So my friend Crazy Anna, not quite getting the hint, said, brilliant, I'm hungry as well, I'll come along. So the three of us, lovely, off we went to find somewhere to eat. And so the area where we were, all the bars and restaurants all had jazz playing and that, so it wasn't that conducive to eating. So we said, I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll go to, just over the road, there's the main street in the city, which is the horrible drinking street, and it's full of like Yateses and, Wetherspoons and all the big chain pubs.
Yeah,
but I knew that one of the restaurants there was an Ask restaurant, an Italian restaurant, okay, part of the Ask chain. And I thought, well, it's not meant for romantic places, but relatively speaking, it's quite swanky for that area of Swansea. The street's called Wine Street. It's the big drinking street, if anyone's ever been there. And I said, we'll go to Ask, because I know it's good food there. And it's great. So we got there, it's probably about 10 o'clock when we got there, so it was pretty empty. I think there's only one other table. It's a big old restaurant. It's for Wine Street, very swanky. To give you an indication of how swanky this venue is, when you go in, there's not like a low partition wall or anything like that. There's a big sort of shelf. What in the 70s, people of my generation would refer to as a room divider. So it's like a big shelf with cupboards on it and glass sliding doors. And it had precious things on it, little bits of ornaments and crystal, and a carved sign saying Kutch, which is Welsh for cuddle. You can't move inside Welsh without Kutch signs. And it was all full of precious things and plates. And just to give you an idea that this wasn't your average run-of-the-mill Wine Street dive. This is a lovely establishment.
This is fancy.
This is swanky pants. This is. So we go in and we have a big meal. We have some more wine. Anna still isn't getting the hint by this point. So I'm there with lovely Ange, and so we go and I said, don't worry, I'll pay, because I'm being all sophisticated. And so thankfully I left quite a generous tip. And so we went to go out, and we just waited. So I got my coat on, and Ange comes out, and we just wait till my friend Anna starts walking out, and the staff are saying, oh, thanks very much, and I think we're the last people in there. And they're saying, oh, thanks very much, come again. They're quite pleased to say, so I'll give them quite a tip. And I'm there thinking, this is just going so well, this is one of the best nights of my life, this could be the start of the rest of my life. And so, very casually, so it looks suave and a bit louche, like that. And I leant on remember the big shelf I mentioned with all the precious things on it? So I kind of leant on that like that. And unfortunately, rather than doing that, I did that, and it started to move. And I looked round, and I had this moment, I thought, this shouldn't be moving. When I looked, the whole shelf started tipping like that. And so I grabbed onto the shelf, because it weighs about half a metric ton, so there was no way with my fingertips. And the whole thing just fell over, and it smashed. And like I say, thankfully there was nobody else. We were the last people in the restaurant. And it hit this table and chairs behind. It crushed the table and chairs behind into splinters. And all the precious things, all the crystals, went smashing across the floor. And the little carved wooden sign that said Kutch went over the air. And everybody's just there going, like this. And so I just thought, well, this is going so well. I've just smashed up a restaurant inadvertently. And I thought, well, at least I've left a big tip. So I really thought, they said, don't worry, it's fine, it's fine. And I thought, oh God, I could probably sort of claw back the evening if I keep my shit. And so I'm looking around, and there's glass and pottery and stuff all over the place. Everything's crushed desperately. And anyway, Sexy Angie's there going, oh, I'm sure that this is fine, and trying to make excuses for it. And I thought, oh, I think I got away with that. And then the door opened, and the police came in. Okay, so bear in mind, this is the big drinking street. It's a Saturday night, by this point about 10:30, 11 o'clock or whatever, and we're the last people in it. And obviously they'd be walking out and heard this massive crash and seen everything and coming to see me there, on top of this shelf. So these two policemen come in, and I look round, and sexy Angie's there going like that. I look round, Anna's done a runner at this point. She's taken one look at the police, and I'm not sure what she had in her handbag, but it was obviously nothing she wanted to put. So she'd done a runner, so I'm just left there with me and sexy Ange, and the police come in and go, "What's been happening here then?" Stereotypical hello, they said. And the bar staff came over and he said, "Did you do this?" And I said, "No, it was an accident, it was fine." He goes, "Well, we're going to have to take some details." And I thought, "Oh my God." And at this point, I didn't even know her surname, let alone me being able to explain to the police. So I said to this policeman, I said, "Look, can I take you to one side?" So he said, yeah. So he came over and he had his notebook. I said, "Look, I'm really sorry." I said, "Look, I'm on a first date with this really lovely, beautiful lady. I said, it's been going really well. And I've just accidentally smashed up a restaurant." I said, "How well do you think my evening's going?" And he kind of looked at me, and I was sort of pleading a bit with the sad dog eyes and everything. And he put his notebook away. He says, "I'll tell you what," he said, "if you leave here now," he said, "and you get into a taxi and never return," he said, "I'll let you both go." So at that point, we got we got thrown out of not only the Ask restaurant, and now technically I'm banned from every Ask restaurant in the UK. Okay, I'm not allowed to return. I've got thrown off the biggest drinking street in Swansea by the police and told never to return ever again. With this lovely young lady on my arm, who I was desperately trying to impress that evening. So the police kind of followed us at a safe distance to make sure we got into the taxi, and we went back up to where she lived, relatively local to me, and we went back. So I completely, So that was the date with Dempsey. I'd smashed up the Ass restaurant, completely destroyed everything, banned from Ass, thrown off the busiest drinking street in Swansea, and I did see her again. The relationship didn't last that long because I think, to be fair, she would insist that we only met up in like soft play areas and things like that, where my damage would be sort of limited. But yes, so that's the story, Jess.
Well, as I always say to my friends who go on dates, it'll either go really well and they're the love of your life, or you'll have a good story. So at least Ange left with a really good story. Okay, how are you going to bring this back to systems engineering? What valuable lesson did you learn that's relevant to your career in this, John?
Well, it comes back to context again, and basically one of the most important, most neglected context or points of view. So we always say when you look at your system, you've got to consider it from different points of view, different contexts, depending on the stakeholders, depending on how we look at it, because different stakeholders can look at the same thing and interpret it in different ways. And after many decades of teaching all this kind of stuff and being exposed to it in industry on real projects, I would say the biggest single point of view or context that's overlooked on most projects, and it's just added in at the end as an afterthought, is safety. And what we saw here was a massive, great. If there were people on that table behind it, they would have been really, really hurt. It smashed the table and the chairs. It was a big, big thing, and it was just not secured in any way to the floor. It was tall, really quite wide, that sort of narrow, about that deep, and it wasn't secured in any way. If I was slightly less capable at the time and thinking slightly clearer, I could have just played the whole safety card, and the police would have been arresting them rather than me, if you see what I mean. But because I thought that's probably going to impress her even less, isn't it, if I get the restaurateurs arrested, bearing in mind I've just smashed up their restaurant. But safety is often added in as an afterthought, rather than actually being an inherent part of the way that we view our systems. And so this sort of dawned on me that this was just not safe in any way. And I just thought, well, if I do that, I'm not the biggest person in the world. That I'm amazed that hasn't happened before. Now, about 2 weeks later, I happened to be walking up that street because I scouted out there were no police around at the time, so I thought it'd be safe. But I was walking up there with a friend of mine, and I sent him in because I didn't even dare cross the threshold with a camera. They just put the thing back up again and just loaded it back up with another set of plates and precious things, and not secured to the floor or anything like that. Not a sign on it saying "Don't lean on this" or anything. They just put the whole thing back up again. And again, it comes back to one of the previous podcasts that we do. It's like learning from mistakes. It's like, okay, not really fair enough, but if this happens, don't just put it up again and say, that was unfortunate, I wonder how that happened. We've got to learn from it, but it's the whole safety angle, and it's so often just not neglected. And you can also bet if they did do something about it, it would be some sticking plaster, sort of band-aid job on safety, just added as an afterthought, rather than building it in and going, you know what, if we want to have something like that, it's got to be properly secured to the floor, it's got to be built into the, attached to the infrastructure or whatever, rather than just being left there. So the lesson I learned from this is, I guess it's twofold. One is safety is very important, but also you've got to build that into the whole life cycle, and it's got to come in as early as possible. It can't just be added. You can't build the system and then say it's safe. You've got to be asking those questions all the way through. And the same holds for all of the other sort of categories of strength, your security, your environmental issues, all these sorts of things go hand in hand. And as I say, this is an example of, all too often, people just don't think about these things early on enough.
Do you think there's a reason for that these things are missed? Is it just that they are?
I don't think. I guess sort of philosophically, it's people don't think in terms. They don't have a systems thinking approach. They don't have a joined up approach. So my guess is what would happen is they'd fit out the rest of it. Right, we need someone. Somebody would come along and look. Right, we'll order this cabinet. Somebody comes along and puts it in, and there's no joined up thinking about, well, how's that cabinet going to fit in terms of everything else? What would happen if it fell over? There's clearly been no risk assessment done on it. I'm sure that they've done risk assessments as they have to with regards to food and where people are sat and so on. But it's like a massive thing. I mean, this thing was like 7 feet tall or something. It was enormous. And I guess it's that general point, isn't it? It's the systems thinking, it's the joined up thinking. Think about the consequences. And this idea, as humans, we don't think in terms of things, we think in terms of concepts, but crucially, we then relate them together. That's how we understand things, that's how we define things in our mind. And as, one of the things that comes from that is this whole systems thinking, you never think of anything in isolation. And I think whilst people are thinking about their systems, whether it's a restaurant system like this was, or a train, a plane, an automobile, you can't be thinking about things in isolation. You've got to think about how are they deployed into the environment, what's the impact on everything else, what are the relationships between them. And that had clearly just not been done at this point. And even more worryingly, it's not been done since. So if only I was allowed to go back to Ask restaurants, I would bring it up with them.
Ask. Well, I mean, I'm about to put together like a Jon Holt reality tour of Swansea, so that'll be going to be on the list. Blue plaque and everything. Yeah. I'll check next time. Okay, well, thanks very much, Jon, for another riveting story. Sometimes I actually forget we're on a podcast because I'm listening and I'm like, actually going to have to think of something intelligent to say in a minute. I can't just be so involved in this story. Thank you so much. Okay, well, thanks for joining us again, listeners. If you have stories and valuable lessons from your own career that you'd like to share with us, please get in touch at rabbits@scarecrowconsultants.co.uk and we'll have you on the pod. That's what the kids now, Jon, is we'll have you on the pod.
Did you say
on the pod?
It lands on the first Friday of every month?
Yeah. Like and subscribe to my channel. New videos every Wednesday. This kind of thing. Anyway, we digress. Thank you very much and we'll see you again soon.
Okay, thanks very much, Jess.